And so the last thing that I wanted to talk about social media is the possibility of building really strong relationships through it. So people sometimes believe that it's not possible to build genuinely supportive and helpful relationships with people that you've never met before in person, never met in person before. And I actually think that's nonsense. Now, this is partly because I've got so much experience with it. Now, obviously, I had all of that thing with Kalgakis, where it was people on social media that really helped point me in the right direction, helped me find sources of support, and helped me get on the track of learning things that would actually help. So there was that, and social media has been a strong thread throughout my learning about dogs. I mean, I did my degree by distance learning. I did a whole dog training degree by distance learning, which was mostly, there was lots of conversations via the college VLE and a little email help group that I was in with some of the other students, and we still have a little support group, even it's like nearly 10 years since I graduated from that degree. So in terms of dog training, social media has been a big part of it, but it's not just been dog training for me. So in financial services, where I've worked as a computer programmer for 22 years, my customers for about 20 years of that time were a company who are based down in the Cotswolds. They're miles and miles away from where I was, just outside Stirling. And although I obviously had social contact directly with the people with the people in my team and the people I worked with in my IT department, but my customers were a really long way away. It was very rare. I mean, I don't think I met anybody from that organisation in person as often as once a year. It was a very rare occurrence where they might come up to visit us, or I might go down to visit them. I mean, and in fact, for about the first 15 or so years that I was involved with them, I don't think I went down once, and they would occasionally come up. So, but there was the need to build really strong relationships based on trust with them. It's an unusual thing for an IT department to work directly with business users, really unusual, and we did, the department I was in, it was unusual even in our IT department to be working directly with customers like that. We had a slightly unusual setup, which did work very well, but they had to trust us, and nobody really trusts IT departments. I don't know if you've ever watched The IT Crowd, where you're stuck in a basement. We did sit in a basement for years at one point, which we all really liked. You're stuck in a basement and nobody really trusts you. They think you do some kind of alchemy, and they don't understand it, and they don't trust you, and you're often, IT departments are seen as barriers to people getting what they want. It's that whole computer says no thing. That's how IT workers are, in my experience, often viewed. So we had that barrier. We were IT, and we were miles away from our customers. We didn't have video conferencing. We never, the whole time I was there was no way that we could video conference with them. The two companies just didn't allow it. Between like, they each had video conferencing internally, but you couldn't do it with external companies. So we could not talk face to face virtually at all. And obviously, when I first started working with them, that function you just couldn't. Nobody could do it. So we used email, and we used the phone, and sometimes we used big conference calls, which at first filled me with a kind of horror. I have gotten used to them now, and they don't bother me at all, but at first it was a terrifying experience for me to have to go into a conference call when you couldn't see people, you didn't know who was talking, and half the time you didn't even know everybody that was in the call. Really stressful. But But that is the setup. So that's been the other part of my life. Aside from dog training, the other part of my life is involved an awful lot of building relationships with people that I'm not face to face with. And I'm much more comfortable with face to face conversation, really, than I am with anything virtual. I've become comfortable with virtual conversations. And when I started my job, look at that, you can't stop touching your face, can you? When I first started my job, I was actually terrified of anybody reading things that I wrote. I would have to go away. I couldn't stand while somebody read an email even that I'd written. I would have to go away. The whole thought of people reading things that I'd written filled me with horror. Going to meetings where we would walk through specifications and we would read them out. If I'd written it, it just made my skin crawl. It was awful. I also didn't really like talking on the phone all that much. I'd dialed it down from a state of complete terror by getting a summer job once in a call centre. It was a lovely job. It was a kind of helpline thing. It was an absolutely lovely job. And it did really help. But I found that its help fell away when I started having to go to conference calls, because that's like a whole, it's just ramping the phone thing up, isn't it? So I am much more, naturally, I'm much more comfortable with face-to-face conversations, and all of a sudden, and then I couldn't. Then I was in two parts of my life confronted with that is not possible. It's just not possible to have that communication, that comfortable, easy, standing in front of somebody communication, and I had to learn different ways. And what I have learned is that it's absolutely is possible to build really strong relationships with people who you either have never met, or if you have, it's been like 2 or 3 times in a couple of decades. It's completely possible to do that. And really to have these things work very well for everybody. So certainly I really would encourage people to find ways to make social media work for you. It's entirely possible. There are now my former customers now have 5 Scottish members of staff, because they came to realise that what the IT department that I was part of was doing for them was really valuable to them. And so they created a few jobs and now have 5 Scottish members of staff, which is a real testament to how strong these virtual relationships were, because they practically were virtual relationships, but it's a real testament to how strong those bonds were. And it's the same thing with me. I started off knowing nobody, and now I know loads of people in dog training, absolutely loads of people, and have lots of really positive relationships, and I go to workshops and I know loads of people, but that all started online. And so when I see people saying, oh, I'm gonna have to come off Facebook because it's really depressing right now, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be a source of help and support, and sometimes the people that you know online are sometimes people who can help you in a way that maybe people in your life can't. I know that when Kalgakis was, the night Kalgakis died, it was people on Facebook, because he died in a really, really awful way. It was unexpected, and the emergency vet clinic that I took him to really, really didn't do as much as they could have done to save him. And the people that I was speaking to at the time didn't really know much about dogs, and so I was with friends when it happened, and they couldn't really understand why I was so worried, because to them nothing bad had really happened, and he was in the right place and he was probably going to be okay, and they felt as though I was being a little bit dramatic about it. And I, of course, knew I wasn't being dramatic about it. I knew he was very seriously ill, and I was very worried because I hadn't been able to convince the vet that it was as serious as it was. So when I went home eventually to wait for the vet to phone me and tell me how Kalgakis was, and I knew the vet was going to phone me and say, yeah, he's much worse than we thought he was, because I knew how ill he was when I dropped him off. So anyway, when I went home to wait for that phone call, to be with Cullen and to wait for that phone call, I sat on Facebook. And my friend, there were friends of mine who typically are awake late at night, who spoke to me, and kept me going, and they were there when the vet phoned and said we can't do what we were planning to do, and they were there when Kalgakis had died. It was a horrendous night. It was absolutely horrendous, and it was people on social media that really helped me through that, because otherwise it would have just been me and Cullen there on our own, because the human people that I could be with could not understand why it was something that I was so worried about. So yeah, try at a time like this when we are physically apart from each other, really I would encourage everybody to try very hard to make social media a positive place for you, so that you can get that sort of support and reassurance. I mean, it's entirely possible to do. And hopefully I've given you some ideas about how to start getting there. I'm really having to try and stop myself touching my face. It's practically impossible. And I'm only noticing now because we're worried, because we're all of course worried that touching your face is a really bad thing to do. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.